0217 Zulu. Over the Arabian Sea. A B-2 Spirit cuts the sky. Radio is low. MCON on. Radio's quiet to stay hidden. Target grid in Yemen is confirmed. Wind steady. Release line locked. Weapons away. The bomber turns cold. 30 seconds later, comms in the region stutter. AIS ship beacons fade. Cell towers blink out. Screens go black. One stealth strike. Then Yemen goes dark. Not rumor. Not myth. A real blackout after a $2.1 billion aircraft hits its mark. 0219 Zulu. Hold your course. Like this video, subscribe, and press the bell icon. Stay to the end to learn what went dark, why it mattered, and how the Navy answered. The Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden form a narrow highway between continents. At the south gate sits the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, only about 18 miles wide at its tightest point. North of it is the Suez Canal, a man-made funnel for ships. Roughly 1 in 10 global goods moves through this route. Oil, grain, electronics. If this waterway slows, fuel prices jump and delivery times slip. Yemen straddles the east side of that gate. For years, Yemen has been split by war. Local factions control different ground. External backers feed money, training, and weapons. Missiles and drones have flowed in. Fighters have learned to hide launchers under roofs, in wadis, and near villages. Sea mines have been laid before. Small, fast boats have rushed big ships. In late months, maritime risk rose. Reports showed drones flying low over the water. Long-range anti-ship cruise missiles tested the horizon. Radar operators on foreign ships saw odd blips. AIS ship trackers were spoofed. Some cargo captains turned off beacons to avoid being hunted. Insurance rates went up. Convoys tightened. The U.S. and allies adjusted posture. A carrier strike group moved within range but kept distance from the coast. Arleigh Burke-class destroyers took station lines to form an Aegis umbrella. In simple terms, Aegis is a ship-based system that watches the sky and sea for threats and guides missiles to shoot them down. P-8A patrol aircraft scanned sea lanes. Satellites watched launch sites. Signals intelligence flagged sudden radio silence in known hot zones. Analysts noted patterns, gaps in chatter before previous strikes, weather windows used for drone runs, and nighttime moves of fuel trucks toward coastal pads. Rules of engagement, or ROE, stayed firm. Defend ships, keep lanes open, avoid civilian harm. Still, the pressure grew. Each day of near misses or probing shots raised the chance of a lethal hit on a tanker or a naval ship. The decision chain asked a core question: how to cut a strike node without starting a wider war. That means hitting a military target that supports attacks at sea, but keeping civilian damage as low as possible. A stealth bomber fit that need. The B-2 Spirit can fly far, stay hidden on radar, and drop precision weapons. Its radar cross-section is tiny because of its shape and skin. It can approach at night, talk in low probability of intercept modes, and release in a single pass. Why use a platform known to cost about $2.1 billion each when including development and sustainment? Because one clean strike that prevents a ship loss and a mass casualty is cheaper than a week of open fighting and a shut waterway. Before the mission, target vetting ran deep. Multiple sources had to agree. Imagery showed a hardened site tied to maritime strikes. Heat signatures matched fuel stores. Movement tracks showed trucks and personnel cycling in patterns around known launch windows. Analysts ran CDE, collateral damage estimation. In plain terms, that means modeling blast, fragments, and shock against nearby homes, clinics, and power lines, then choosing weapon types, angles, and fuses to reduce harm. Weather teams checked wind, dust, and cloud layers. Legal advisors reviewed the target under the law of armed conflict. Commanders looked at the timing with Navy assets offshore. Electronic warfare support would create confusion in the spectrum at the moment of release. The air tasking order set the clock. A tanker refuel before ingress, an MCON approach to stay quiet, a tight TOT, time on target, aligned to sea and space sensors. Risks were logged. Integrated air defenses could pick up an anomaly. A lucky look from a ground radar could cue a missile battery. A power grid reaction was also possible. When a military node tied to communications or power is hit, local grids can trip. Sometimes operators shut down lines on purpose to prevent damage. Sometimes fiber cuts or jammed nodes cause chain failures. The phrase "Yemen went dark" could mean several things: a physical grid failure near the site, a wider protective shutdown by local controllers, or deliberate jamming that masked signals in and out. For the Navy, any blackout in the target zone changes the picture at sea. Ship captains lose civilian beacons. Merchant traffic slows. A confused space can hide threats. That is why the surface group set hair-trigger defenses for the window around the strike. Link 16 and other data links would keep tracks clean. Weapons stayed tight unless a clear threat emerged. The plan was simple in words and complex in execution. Strike the node that feeds attacks on shipping, get out clean, keep lanes open, and control the message. The timeline built up over weeks. Warnings from insurers, test launches into the water, drone sightings near shipping lanes, spoofed AIS maps at night, then a final set of images showing activity at the target. At 0217 Zulu, the switch flipped. A stealth wing crossed the coast. Precision solved what patrols and warnings could not. The setup led to a single moment designed to change behavior across the strait without widening the war. T-3 minutes to release. The B-2 Spirit flies blacked out, deep over water, nose pointed toward the coast. MCON holds. That means radios and emitters stay quiet unless needed. Fuel is green. The tanker handoff happened far out, and the bomber now rides a planned altitude that keeps it under most ground radar and above small arms threat. The crew breathes slow. They run the last checks by memory and touch. Target grid is loaded and cross-checked. Coordinates match what satellites, patrol aircraft, and ground sources built over weeks. The final weather layer is clean enough. Thin clouds, light crosswind, no lightning cells. At T-90 seconds, sensors confirm the last fix. Synthetic aperture radar lines up features on the ground. Infrared sees heat where heat should be. Vehicles parked in patterns that match a launch team on standby. A moving target indicator shows a truck pull clear of a blast-safe lane. This is classic pre-launch behavior. In the carrier strike group, the destroyers hold a silent ring. Link tracks flow like a heartbeat across ships and aircraft. Link 16 is the joint data link that shares who is where and who is friendly. The air defenses remain weapons tight. That means do not shoot unless there is a confirmed threat. EW support spins up on schedule to fog the enemy picture. Electronic warfare is the art of messing with the other side's sensors and comms without firing a shot. At T-30 seconds, the cockpit rhythm narrows to a few words: altitude, airspeed, heading, release consent. The target is a hardened site tied to maritime attacks, vetted under law and policy. The crew knows the blast plan and the no-strike rings around nearby civilian sites. They also know the escape turn must be clean and cold. Cold means pointing away from the target and reducing the chance of detection. At T-5 seconds, the crew calls the final mark. The bomber steadies, release. The weapons drop in sequence, guided by systems that mix satellite and inertial input. No drama, no second pass. At time on target, the sea is calm, but the spectrum is not. Off the coast, the Navy's EW pulse crests and then fades. Time to break enemy eyes for a few beats without cooking the air. In the operations room, watchstanders count the seconds. They do not cheer. They log. They verify. They wait for BDA, battle damage assessment, because effects, not noise, are the measure. T+30 seconds, the first tell shows up where few look. Commercial pings begin to thin. AIS signals from nearby merchant ships drop off or freeze. AIS is the transponder that tells other ships where you are to avoid collisions. In conflict zones, captains sometimes delay or spoof it. Cell towers near the target stop answering. Data nodes hiccup. Radio nets go quiet, then return as clipped bursts, then go quiet again. Is it jamming? Is it a grid trip? Is it a protective shutdown? The truth is that all can happen at once when a military node tied to comms or power is hit and when EW is in play. The bomber banks to egress, cold and steady. It does not look back. The crew listens for a single word: clean. Clean means no threat spike, no missile launch, no surprise radar lock. On the water, destroyers widen spacing to avoid being mapped as a tight cluster. Helicopters stand by but stay on deck. Patrol aircraft extend patterns to keep watch on fast boats that may try to rush into the confusion. Insurance chat lines light up with questions about routes. A few tankers slow and ask for convoy advice. The carrier group answers through standard channels with careful language. Nothing public, nothing flashy, just guidance to maintain lanes and remain outside defined risk boxes. T+5 minutes, heat signatures at the target shift from hot to cooling, which suggests a quick kill and no sustained fire beyond the planned effect. That matters for collateral risk. Secondary explosions are limited, which points to a strike that hit key nodes without lighting a wider storage area. Analysts compare before and after images piped in from a mix of sensors. They see roof damage in expected places, doors blown in, and visible cables cut at trenches that once fed signal equipment. They also see a regional power line go dark, then come back, then shed load again as operators rebalance. The phrase, "Yemen went dark," races through private nets, but inside the task force, the language stays precise. Localized comms degradation, probable protective grid shedding, and a temporary loss of civilian transponder density. The crew gets the word they trained years to hear: clean egress. Tanker rendezvous is set on a line that avoids known long-range missile arcs from shore batteries. The bomber keeps MCON as long as possible, then checks in on a narrow beam to confirm fuel and weather to the next gate. The strike is not the end. It is the start of a new watch. On the ships, teams reset timelines, rotate eyes, and run drills. They expect probes, drones launched to test the air defense ring, coastal radars snapping on, and off to see if the group blinks, cyber pokes at logistics networks, and message wars online. The incident lasts minutes on a clock, but lingers for days in the balance of risk. The aim was to cut a hand that had been reaching into the sea to hit ships. The effect, measured in shipping speed and insurance rates and the absence of missiles arcing over the water, would show if it worked. For now, the bomber fades to the horizon. The sea holds its breath, and the task force keeps its circle tight and its surface calm. The B-2 Spirit is a flying wing built for one goal: reach far, stay unseen, and hit with precision. Its shape bends radar waves away instead of back to the radar. Its skin uses materials that absorb energy. Edges line up to hide corners that would reflect. The result is a radar cross-section far smaller than a normal bomber. In plain words, it looks like a bird on a radar screen, or nothing at all until it is close. Stealth is not magic. It is management of risk in the spectrum. The B-2 reduces detection by radar, by infrared, by sound, and by visual sighting. At night, with radios quiet and the right altitude and speed, it can pass through air defenses that would force other aircraft to turn back. The price tag near $2.1 billion each often shocks people. That number includes research, testing, unique materials, software, training, spare parts, upgrades, and a small fleet size that spreads costs over few airframes. You do not buy stealth by the pound. You buy the ability to shape the fight, prevent a war at sea, or stop one before it spreads. Weapons on a mission like this follow simple logic, even if the code is complex. Guidance blends GPS and INS. GPS gives location from satellites. INS is an inertial system that tracks movement inside the bomb when GPS is jammed or blocked. Together, they keep a weapon honest to its target. Fuses are set to act at the right moment, on impact after a delay to reach inside a structure, or airburst if needed for certain effects. Weaponeering means choosing the weapon, the angle, the impact point, and the number of munitions for the goal with the least side harm. Crews run collateral damage estimation, or CDE, to map blast and fragments against nearby homes, clinics, or power lines. They choose flight paths that avoid dense areas. They plan for wind and dust that can move debris or smoke. They avoid second passes, which raise risk to the aircraft and to civilians. Electronic warfare is the quiet partner of a stealth strike. EW works in 3 simple moves: detect, deny, deceive. Detect finds the other side's radars and radios. Deny blocks or blinds them for a window of time. Deceive feeds them false pictures so they look the wrong way. Navy ships can project EW effects over water and along the coast. They do not hold the jamming forever. They pulse it at key moments so defenders cannot learn the pattern. In this case, EW framed the release window, masked the picture, and then cleared, leaving minimum trace. That reduces the chance that civilian comms stay jammed, and it hides the exact tool set used. Data links tie the whole team together. Link 16 shares tracks for air, sea, and some land units. Each track has a J number that helps sort friend, unknown, and threat. The network updates in seconds. A destroyer can see a drone lift off the coast from a P-8 patrol feed, while the bomber crew sees the same track labeled on their board. That is how deconfliction works. Everyone knows where everyone else is. Weapons tight and weapons free are status calls in this shared picture. Tight means hold until sure. Free means the threat is clear and validated. On a night like this, tight is the default to avoid accidental shots in a busy sky. Integrated Air Defense Systems, or IADS, pose the main risk to a bomber. IADS ties radars, missiles, guns, and command posts into one brain. Stealth reduces the chance that brain sees you. MCON reduces the chance it hears you. Altitude and route planning reduce the chance it predicts you. Tankers let you take long paths that avoid known radar fans and missile arcs. Egress, the way out, is part of the plan from the start. The bomber leaves along a corridor that avoids hot zones, then meets fuel at a point far from shore batteries that can fire long. Timing is the shield here. The longer you hang near the coast after a strike, the more the defender can focus sensors and shoot. The cleaner the timing, the smaller the window to counter. Yemen went dark, needs plain meaning. A grid can go dark when a line trips to protect itself after a shock. Operators sometimes shut parts of the grid to keep damage from spreading. Fiber lines can be cut by blast or collapse. Local comms nodes can lose power or switch to backup with limited reach. EW can also make radios and phones fail for a short time. Civilian ships rely on AIS, which some captains switch off in danger and which can be spoofed or jammed. So the blackout after the strike may be a mix. A hit near key cables, a planned grid shed, and brief EW effects. For the task force, that means less background noise and more unknowns. It makes the sea feel empty and tense at once. That is why the surface group raises alert states around the time on target, and then steps them down when the picture is clean again. Law and policy wrap the technical frame. Targets must be military or give a direct and concrete military advantage if disabled. Proportionality means the strike must not cause civilian harm that is excessive compared to that advantage. Necessity means you only strike if other means cannot achieve the aim. Distinction means you must separate military from civilian people and objects. These rules drive target vetting, choice of weapon, and timing. They also drive messaging after the strike. Forces do not brag. They state the effect and the reason if they say anything at all. In a joint mission, each arm, Air Force, Navy, intelligence, plays a part bound by the same rules. The last technical point is simple. Stealth and precision do not remove risk. They reduce it and localize it. They buy options to deter, to disrupt, to delay, to deny. In a tight strait that holds 10% of global trade, those options matter. One clean strike can change a week of shipping and a season of planning, but it must be paired with steady watch, honest assessment, and a plan for what comes next. In the first hour after the strike, The sea changed in small but real ways. Tankers slowed by 2 knots on average in the southern Red Sea. Convoy spacing widened by a mile. Insurance desks raised risk premiums by a few percent for ships hugging the Yemen coast. These numbers sound small, but in shipping, small changes stack up fast across hundreds of hulls and tight schedules. The task force logged the first night as stable. No ballistic launches from shore, no anti-ship cruise missiles fired. A few drones tried to lift, 2 never gained link. 1 splashed after a short flight. Air defenses stayed tight and calm. The carrier air wing kept a silent cap, combat air patrol over the lanes rotating on schedule. The bomber cleared to its next gate, tanked, and crossed out without any radar spike on the record. On land, the target area showed heat that cooled in line with a precision hit on key nodes. That suggests the site was disabled, not turned into a wildfire. Nearby power lines shed load, recovered, then shed again as operators balanced their grid. Local comms returned in patches. Civil networks often restart this way after a shock to a feeder or a node. AIS density off the coast lagged normal for a few hours and then climbed as captains saw no follow-on launches. The phrase "Yemen went dark" made noise online, but the precise picture was this. A local blackout near the military site, short disruptions to cell service and data nodes, and a wider caution from ships that briefly turned off or spoofed their beacons. The strategic message traveled farther than the blast. To regional actors, the signal was clear. Maritime strike support sites are not safe if they threaten global lanes. To partners, the message was steadiness under pressure. A single strike, timed with EW cover and careful ROE, pushed risk down without pushing the war wide. That does not end the threat. It shifts it. Adversaries learn, move, and try again. They may turn to sea mines, to more layered camouflage, or to fire on softer targets like unescorted feeders. That is why the outcome was measured not only in what stopped, but in what changed. In the next 72 hours, shipping times through the Bab el-Mandeb improved by a few percent. Patrols found no new mines. Satellite passes saw equipment move inland from exposed coastal pads. Online channels tried to claim big damage to civilian grids, but commercial imagery and open power data did not match those claims. The Navy kept its tempo low and firm. No victory lap, just clear lanes and clean logs. Intelligence flagged likely tests to come. Radar snaps, small boat probes, cyber pokes at port systems. The Joint Force updated ROE cards, refined convoy advice, and kept tankers on safe tracks. The biggest outcome sat in the silence. There was no mass casualty hit at sea and no panic routing around Africa, which would add 10 to 15 days to a voyage and spike costs. The strike bought time. It showed capacity and restraint. It set a price for attacks on shipping without closing the door to de-escalation. That is how a stealth bomber, a quiet destroyer line, and a precise plan can change a week in a narrow strait that moves 1/10 of the world's trade. Night hides many things. It also shows what matters. The strike was one moment. The watch that followed was many hours. Together, they told a simple truth. Power in war is not only blast and fire, it is also timing, silence, and aim. Stealth still matters, not because it is invisible, because it lets leaders choose where and when to act. A stealth jet can cross long range, stay low on radar, and end a threat before it grows. Precision still matters. Not because it is perfect, because it reduces harm while it hits what must be hit. Law and duty matter too. They guide the hand when tension climbs and fear spreads. The sea is a mirror of our world. 10% of trade rides that water. Fuel, food, parts for trucks and phones. When risk rises in the Bab el-Mandeb, people in far cities feel it at the pump and the store. A clean lane protects wallets and lives. It protects sailors on watch and families who wait for them. Yemen went dark became a line that moved fast. Words move faster than facts. Some saw a full grid collapse. Some saw a myth. The real picture was smaller and sharper. A local blackout? A short choke on signals? A careful step by captains who slowed to stay safe? In the fog, clear heads looked for proof, not noise. That is how you keep a crisis small. Adversaries will adapt. They may shift inland. They may hide launch gear deeper. They may seed mines or use more drones at once. The answer is not louder talk. It is steady work. Patrols, sensor passes, cyber defense. Training that keeps crews calm when screens flicker and radios fail. What should we watch next? Look for more convoy moves in the strait. Look for insurance rates to level or rise. Watch satellite shots of old pads going quiet and new sites growing inland. Track drone counts and missile tests. See if merchant traffic keeps speed through the gate. These are small dials. They show the true state of risk. War is not a movie. It is a set of choices made under limits. The strike showed a way to act with force, but not fury. It bought time without closing doors. It sent a line across the sea. Attacks on shipping have a cost. The final lesson is sober. Strength without control breaks trust. Control without strength invites attack. The balance lives in nights like this. Quiet, focused, ready.